Today we've read the prologue, the Gospel of John. And right from the start, John really sets himself apart from the other synoptic Gospels. They're really two entirely different approaches in proclaiming the same truth. Normally, the Christological approach of the synoptic Gospels is called the ascending approach. And John's approach is called the descending approach. How so? If you look at the synoptic Gospels, the starting point is the truth of the humanity of Christ. And from his humanity and his real incarnation, we come to discover with the apostles that he's not only a man, a prophet, but that he is truly the only Son of God. If you look at the Gospel of Matthew, for example, it's like an ascension that reaches its summit in the profession of faith in chapter 16, in the mouth of the Apostle Peter, when he says, "You are truly the Son of God." The Gospel of John has a different logic. It starts already making the profession of Christ being the Word who dwelt before time with God the Father. But this Word has made himself flesh. So there are two different ways in which we proclaim the same faith. The interesting thing is that each one of these Christological approaches has its own spiritual consequence. For example, John's perspective reminds us that in a sense, we are already saints. In a sense, each one of us baptized is already a saint. And that's why Paul, when he writes his letters, he calls all the Christians baptized, he calls them the saints. Because they are already living the divine life in themselves. They are already the dwelling place for the Trinity. They already share in divine kingship with God. And that is completely true for each one of us. In a sense, if we're baptized and we live in the state of grace, we're already saints. We only ought to live out what we already are. But the synoptic perspective also has its own consequences for a spiritual life. In a sense, we still have to ascend too. There's still a pathway for us to follow in our continual conversion and in our continual purification. So which approach is better? John's approach or the synoptics? And the truth is that both approaches need each other. Let me finish with this. Today is the last day of this year. A few days ago, I was reading a book on Mother Frances Cabrini. And she wrote a letter to her fellow sisters, and she said something very interesting. She said, "Let us be grateful with God, because in being grateful, we dispose ourselves to receive more of his blessings." She was saying, the more grateful someone is with God, in a sense, the more apt you make yourself to receive more of his blessings. So today, I think it's a good day for us, brothers and sisters, to reflect upon our blessings this year. And I was thinking about this. How many times did you receive God's mercy this year? How many times did God treat you in a way beyond your own merits? How many times did he surprise you with the way that he loved you, although you made all the merits not to be loved? So I think it would be unwise to close this year without having a time for reflection and saying, what are all the blessings that I received? And in being grateful, better disposing ourselves for the upcoming year to be even more blessed by the Lord. Who would be us more inclined to give something to the people that are ungrateful or to the people that are grateful? And the answer is very simple. Like, we want to give to those people who are grateful. In the same way, I think that's true also to God and ourselves.